I've seen your film in Telluride, and it has been lingering ever since. And what really lingers is the humanity of it. When I saw the title of your film, and it was about the health crisis in America, I thought, oh, for God's sake, please let it not be a film, an issue film, like you see always on television. And I was totally stunned how beautifully done it is, and how human it is, and how this comes across. And you have a certain attitude, how you are talking to people. And for me, of course, there's also the question of casting. Can you speak about casting, the characters that are central now?
Yes, thanks for saying that, and thanks for coming, Werner. Well, yes, I mean, the way I came to the movie was, I had done some things with ITVS in the past. They asked, do I have an idea? And I had been reading about these hospitals that were closing. And my father was a doctor in North Carolina, and he mainly was treating working class patients. He didn't like to see other types of people, and we used to go to the mountains together in North Carolina, and I would go with him as a child, and I was curious about who these people were now, so many decades later, and what were they like. And so the first step in the casting was finding the two doctors with the health wagon. That seemed to be a way to meet people and weave together a story of what I was more interested in, which was the human interactions. And so then it was a question about finding a array of characters that had good qualities of conversation and hopefully of some humor, and were open to sharing more than just their health ailment. And then the wilder ones, like someone said, this hospital has a paranormal activity going on. You're probably not interested, right? And I said, of course, I want to go there very quickly. And so it seemed like the perfect way to set up the movie, because it catches you off guard, and I was so happy that people were laughing, because I imagine you do not expect to laugh in the movie. And it is, of course, very painfully ironic that this could be a functioning hospital, but instead, people are searching for ghosts and demons.
And Ramin, was the network on board from the beginning, or did you somehow set out and then you found the finances in the network and the distribution for the film?
Yeah, they were there from the beginning. And from the beginning, I told them I do not want to make a film about facts and figures. You can read that in a news article, but you cannot get into the lives of people in any other way, and I wanted you to feel something.
Sure, that's what I was afraid of. For God's sake, let it not be an issue film. And you see it everywhere, and I'm sick and tired of this. And now you come along and you make something completely out of the blue, so deeply touching, like nothing anywhere around. There's nothing around like this.
Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, my background is Iranian, and my dad was born and raised in a very small village in Iran. They didn't have running water. He did not, at age 8 or 9, he flipped the switch and understood there was electricity. We've talked before, in many ways, there's some similarity to your own childhood of being in the Bavarian jungle and having a difficult upbringing, and he had that. And I think that's why he was drawn to being with the patients he was, and probably why many of my films are about working class environment. And he knew how to talk to them, and I think I got that quality from him. For example, one time he got a phone call from his receptionist. Kay Withers was her name. I was very young. And she said, you need to come because there is a man with a gun, and he said he is going to kill you and then kill himself. And so my dad went there to the parking lot, and the man was there with a gun. And Kay Withers wanted to call the cops, and this is maybe 30, 40 years ago. And my dad said, no, for the love of God, don't call the police. They're going to kill him. Let me talk to him. So he went to the man and said, what's happening? What's bothering you? And he said, life is terrible. It's nothing, and I hate you and myself, and I'm going to kill you and then blow my brains out. And my dad said, but why? He said, there's nothing worth living for. And then my dad said, I don't know. I could go down the street and get us a hamburger and French fries and a Coca-Cola from Hardee's, the same Hardee's they mentioned in the film. And he said, well, would you like that? Hardee's. Yes. Okay, yes, I want that. Then I'll kill you. And so he went and got him the Hardee's, and the man ate it, and they ate some Big Macs or the Whoppers or whatnot, and that was that. And the man didn't kill anyone. And so it is funny, but he had that way of getting, and I think that's probably where I got it from. And I should admit some of the things I learned from watching your film since I was a young kid in North Carolina, and picking the red tab, if any of you remember, was VHS, and blue is for beta cassette tapes, and I would pick the red tab, and I would watch your films or find them in the library, and that's where I came to understand not making the issue films, and also, and what we talked about when I had made my first short doc some years ago was remaining silent and letting people.
Yes, and in particular, when they are done speaking, you let the camera linger on them, and all of a sudden it becomes beyond the statement. It becomes a deep tragedy, or it becomes a very human story, which is kind of not normal in the films, in the documentaries that you see on television. They don't do that, but you do it, and I do it.
Yeah, and what's amazing is people will just start talking also. They will start talking about things I never would have dreamed to ask them. If you just remain silent, they have things they want to say, and no one's asking them or listening to them. So if you remain silent, they will also go off into some stories I never would have dreamed to ask about.
I think her name is Betty early in the film, how she speaks about men, and the husband maybe is still coming around. And the way she laughs, I mean, it's just wonderful. I never see anything like this. And I think there's a connection that's not the camera, and it's not the sound recording. It's very much from a soul to another soul. And that's where real poetry in cinema begins. And you did that.
Thank you.
I would like to say one thing about the two medical doctors who have this mobile clinic. I think they are heroic. There's something unusual and totally heroic, although they're completely down to earth and tackle what's coming at them. And at the same time, I'm trying to find out what is going on with American society. Something that and I must say I like America, but certain things are deeply, deeply wrong. It is a country, America is a country, but it has difficulties to form a civil society. And that's why you have the phenomenon of, in the tragedy of homeless people, you have the tragedy of people who are without coverage, insurance coverage. So how do you see your film embedded in a larger tragedy?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that struck me in the film was the very patriotic nature of the characters. They are so much in love with the country, but you can see the fissures or the confusions or the cognitive dissonance in the characters when they say, for example, the Vietnam vet, it's the greatest country on earth, but they don't take care of their own people. This was a constant refrain, as was things that I didn't want to put in the film, but concepts that many of these people kept voting against their own interest, and you understand why, because they have been, the concept that they have been forgotten is really true. I mean, no one seems to have any clue I would say many of us, we don't really know what's going on outside of large cities that many people live in now.
Yeah.
I'm always very moved by the mother and daughter when the woman talks about her dream of the big city, and then
Yeah.
the you read this expression, or we say this expression, the person crumbled before my eyes, but that's the only time I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
When she says she doesn't want to lose her home, and then she just, I've seen the movie 100 times because you're editing, and each time it happens, I'm just devastated by her.
Yeah. And you have the courage to stay on her. You don't switch the camera off. It's long enough that something else sinks in it, acquires a different quality. It's not just silence. It's not just watching her in some sort of afterthought. There's something which elevates a film, and that's what I love about your film. And of course, behind every single person there's a tragedy, and you see many people gathering at the end. Nobody of them speaks, and you know what you have seen before. Every single person that you see there, if you dig into their stories, there would be a tragedy and another tragedy and another one.
Yeah.
So you can go on for the next 2.5 hours.
Yes.
And it would be it would be the same sort of tragic mishandling of something that belongs to a civil society.
Right. Yeah. And even when you see the wagon drive away, you know it's going to see people in another town, and another town, and another town,
Yeah.
and another home. But I really wanted that. Any John Prine fans here? I wanted that John Prine song in the end, where the title comes from
Yeah.
those lyrics, because of what you said, their courage, their resilience.
Yeah.
But it is, I was reading recently that if the richest 1% not paid more taxes, just paid their taxes, it's approximately $200 billion, which is enough to pull everyone who is under the poverty line above the poverty line. It's astounding. And when the politicians tell us, I can solve all these problems without raising your taxes or you losing anything, it seems absolutely meaningless. How could I not? I should lose something. I have to lose something for someone else to gain something. It is not, we cannot we cannot create more matter out of the universe, right?
Yeah.
So this part of it, after making this was the first time I began to think more and more, what am I supposed to do, and why am I not responsible?
Well, as an American, to some degree you are.
Yes.
You are voting here and you are a citizen. But I think you do your job well, because you can't be everywhere. You can't do everything at once. The beauty of what you do is that you make it visible. You let it sink in. You point out that there's something deeply wrong. You point out that all these people are not just the flyovers that can be neglected and ignored. They're very, very deeply human. And you see, the moment I see these people, I'd like to be with them and go with them to the hamburger joint. And so, fine, yes. I would rather like to be with them than, let's say, with a bunch of entertainment industry attorneys. Okay. Well, I'm just thinking loudly. But,
there are 18 of them in the room.
No, I don't believe that. Yeah. Okay, but I think we should find out what are your questions or what are your observations. Can you please be daring enough?
How did you find them, Ramin? The women, these fantastic two women.
How do we find
the women?
There's two
Yes.
women.
Read about them.
You read about them?
Yeah, we read about them and then went down there, and discovered that they were amazing in person. They had a lot of energy, and they reminded me of people from back home in North Carolina, and I liked the vibe of them, and yes.
When you started the process, how was it that did you know that there was going to be this kind of like lightness to these characters, that there was going to be some within this tragic ambiance, this tragic stories, that there was going to be this levity to it that was going to feel so human, that makes us feel really connected to them? And how was the process of discovering that?
You never know what you're going to get, but I mean, I was born and raised in North Carolina, and people in the South have good humor by nature, and I liked that. I wanted the film to have humor, and it wasn't hard with some of the characters because they had a good energy and a good sense of humor. And I always think back to Flaherty, the great first documentary filmmaker, and his story about Nanook of the North, which he made with the Inuit people, and he would say about the Inuit people and how they did sculpture. He would say that the Inuit people don't look at a rock and say, "Rock, you are a whale." Instead, they would look at the rock and think and look and then say, "Rock, what do you want to be?" And then the rock would say, "Oh, I'm a sea lion." And they would see it, and all they had to do was strip some things away, and it was there. So the approach, even in the fiction films, but certainly in these, is to go there and let them tell you what they are and what they're going to do. Which, if you just ask a handful of the questions that are not facts and figures, and you just pause and say nothing, they'll start to tell you who they are. And then you weave yourself with them.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
The husband and the wife, I was very struck, and it felt, I suppose, like a kind of tragic, violent soul to the picture for me. And I wondered when you found that moment and how you shaped the experience maybe up to and afterwards, if that was a part of your structure.
Danny and Melanie, yes, it's obviously a very devastating and shocking moment. I never forget when I got the phone call. It was hard to process or even I couldn't understand what they were saying to me on the phone. Yeah, it changed the edit of the movie. Their story was in a different place, and then it seemed impossible not to move it either to the very last part of the film, or I made the decision to put it before the group, the group setting, the community. That seemed one step more, but yeah, that changed where it came in the film, and how that sequence was edited got altered a little bit to lead up to what the kind of revelation of what would happen. By the way, I think we understand, but just to say it out loud, healthcare in prison is not good. But it's startling that it's better than what some people have. I mean, it's just astounding that it's better than what many people have.
A very dark joke.
Irony.
A dark irony, sadly, yeah, tragic one. It's beyond irony, it's just tragic.
Last question.
Yes, last question. Yes, sir, here's.
How difficult was it to get these people in rural areas to open up to
Can you speak
Hollywood?
to the microphone?
How difficult was it to get rural people to open up to Hollywood?
I know
Well,
I'm from a rural area, so
where are you from?
Well, I'm from Northern California,
Yeah.
the garlic capital of the world.
Yeah. By the way, these stories are happening in not just in rural Appalachia. They're happening in any. You could go to Ohio and find this story. You could go anywhere and find the story in a rural part of that state. I mean, I'm not really from Hollywood. And I'm not going to say just because I live in New York, but you know, I'm basically an independent filmmaker. That's what I've been doing my whole life, and I've never had a hard time getting people to talk or to open up. I'm from a rural area. I was born and raised in North Carolina, a town there. I don't know, I've never had a hard time talking with strangers. People who know me well get frustrated with me because they always want to know why I'm not more interested in them as I am with a stranger. I get inspiration talking to strangers.
Yeah, but Ramin, it's very easy to talk to you. It's when you speak to these people, you sense there's a soul coming across to them, and they recognize it. Allow me one more remark. Of course, the film has to be out and should be seen in the communities, but I think as we are here in Los Angeles, it should also be seen by the Academy community, because I think it's one of those films which is completely sticking out, not like a sore thumb, but a wonderful thumb, something completely wondrous and unprecedented, and those who are members of the Academy or know members of the Academy should alert them to the film. It deserves to be seen, and it deserves to be recognized by the Academy. That's what I think. That's how I see the duty. I think the Academy has a duty here. All right, thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming.